In 2020, there was a 44-day war in Nagorno-Karabakh. It's known as the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War. It started 27th of September until November 9th, and it was basically between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan admitted to starting this war in purported frustration for ongoing peace negotiations that had been taking place for 26 years prior, seeming to lead nowhere. The very fact that Azerbaijan launched this second war is in itself a violation of international law, because it violates one of the most important rules, which is the prohibition on the use of force. We can never use force to settle territorial disputes. It's one of the most important rules in international law. There are only two exceptions to that rule, either fighting in self-defense or having Security Council, UN Security Council authorization, but the situation doesn't fit either one of those exceptions, so the war itself is a violation of international law. What we saw during those 44 days were a series of human rights violations and crimes. Very quickly, we saw shelling of civilian areas and civilian objects, and this is a violation of international humanitarian law in the sense that you are supposed to only target military objects and military personnel. We also saw the use of incendiary weapons in the form of white phosphorus, and mostly Armenian soldiers had evidence of this on them, with the kinds of burns that don't heal. They actually reignite when they're exposed to oxygen. That's why they're not allowed normally to be used, because they are indiscriminate and inflict inhumane pain. The use of mercenaries was also widely reported. These were supplied by Turkey to help fight for Azerbaijan. These were Syrian mercenaries, and that is a violation of the Convention against the use of mercenaries that Azerbaijan is a party to. We also saw the destruction of cultural heritage on a pretty wide scale, the most iconic example being the destruction of the Gazanjetots Church in Shushi, which was bombed twice. And the destruction of cultural heritage during war has a special protection under international human rights and humanitarian law, because targeting such property directly attacks the sort of the identity of the affected communities and causes a disproportionate amount of suffering on them. And of course, there were also widespread accounts of killings, extrajudicial killings, and torture, mistreatment of Armenians that fell into Azerbaijani hands. They were widely reported as well by international organizations and unfortunately videotaped and made public, which does have the effect of terrorizing the populations. After the ceasefire, there were several ceasefire violations here and there, but unfortunately the conflict has then spilled over into Armenia. And starting May 2021, Azerbaijan has begun to invade Armenia proper and occupy Armenian territory in sort of what's called a bit of a salami slicing technique. Slowly, they're creeping in. There were three major phases of this: May 2021, November, and then also the biggest one was September 2022, where there were days of fighting along the entire eastern border of Armenia. And subsequent to that, we saw some similar kinds of violations that had taken place during the 44-day war. Most notably, there was a video that came out with at least 6 unarmed Armenian soldiers who were surrounded and summarily executed. This was found by a very reputable forensic organization called Bellingcat to have taken place in Sevlich, which is on Armenian territory. There were also instances of female soldiers who were dead in the photographs and also appeared to have been sexually assaulted. This is not something we saw in the 44-day war, so it's quite alarming. The biggest violation that has been ongoing since December 12th of 2022 is the blockade of the Lachin corridor. It was purported to be a sort of spontaneous uprising of Azerbaijani self-proclaimed eco-activists that did not move for months and months in Azerbaijan, despite being ordered by the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, the European Court of Human Rights, even the situation went to the Security Council. They refused to stop this, and it caused a humanitarian crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination is one of the most important international treaties because that sort of behavior can lead to genocide. Armenia brought its case before the International Court of Justice towards the end of 2021, and a week later, Azerbaijan countered with its own case against Armenia. The court has already ordered provisional measures, but the most significant one being lately with respect to the Lachin corridor, to ordering Azerbaijan to lift the blockade. Orders of that nature are absolutely binding. There's no question about that, but the question is then, who are they binding on? They are only binding on the states that are party to the case before the ICJ. It is on Azerbaijan to comply with this order, and failure to do so is an issue that can still be brought before the International Court of Justice because the case is ongoing. To the extent that in this case, for example, it's causing a humanitarian crisis, it's almost causing, in fact, bringing us to a brink of ethnic cleansing. It disturbs or threatens international peace and security in the region. The UN Security Council is vested with not only the power but the responsibility to intervene immediately when something like that happens. Then it just becomes again a question of a legal right versus the political will. Unfortunately, without a sturdier, more robust enforcement mechanism, this is all we've got. And it is important that we don't give up, that we keep trying, because these cases, they build upon each other, and the findings build upon each other to create the overall, what happened. The international world order is set up in a way with certain rules and certain procedures that we're supposed to abide by in order to maintain international legal order. What we are seeing is a very disturbing shift where might is right and authoritarian regimes are ignoring those rules and just sort of saying, I'm stronger, I'm going to do whatever I want. This is what's happening between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. If we don't hold perpetrators or violators of those rules to account, if we don't call out the violation and have some form of punishment, somehow we're going to end up in a world where authoritarian regimes prevail. And so this isn't just about securing the future of Armenia, it's about securing the future of the global order. We have to know that we're going to live in a world where people don't just get away with invading each other's countries or burning each other's homes or violating each other's rights without consequence. Otherwise, they'll do more and more of it. It's a basic reward and punishment principle, and it applies across the board.